Hello and welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us, whether you are with us live or watching the replay. It's fabulous to be with you, and very special warm welcome to this beautiful lady, Tracy Fenton, who's with us. Welcome, Tracy.
Naomi, I feel so privileged to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you. I know you're a very busy lady, and I so appreciate you taking the time to join us and talk all about mindset and empowerment, which is such a key part of success, personally and professionally, for all of us. So just for all of you watching, yes, thanks, Tracy. I'm going to give you a little intro into this amazing lady in a second.
Okay.
But please, if you have any comments, you're welcome to drop those into the chat. Tracy and I will follow along. And even if you're watching the replay, please go ahead. If you have any questions, just engage. We'd love you to join in, and we will go back afterwards. If you've watched the replay and you still have any questions, just go ahead and drop those in the comments below the video, and we will go back and answer those for you and keep in touch. So thanks again. And let me tell you a little insight about this gorgeous lady. Tracy is a certified mindset coach with 6 years of qualifications, specializing in the human mind. Super fascinating. She has 2 years of Neurolinguistic Programming training and is a qualified counselor with 4 years of training. And that included internship at various places such as hospice, Pretoria Central Prison, and a drug rehabilitation center for youths. We've got someone with us who says, awesome. Let me see, who is that? I just want to check. If you're with us, ladies, if any of you are watching inside the Brand Stars group, then I might not see your name. So, it's Lavinthra. Lovely to have you with us, Lavine. Thank you for joining us. Yeah, so I just might not see your name if you're inside the group. Otherwise, you might be on my Facebook business page or on YouTube. So welcome all of you. So so Tracy's worked in some interesting places, and she works remotely via Zoom, and she sees clients in person, so providing one-on-one sessions. And here's Gillian. Hi, Gillian. Awesome. She's here as well. Lovely to see you.
Hi, Jill.
Thank you. Yes, and Jill actually introduced us, so thanks for that. Shout out to you, Jill. Okay, so Tracy sees people one-on-one sessions for individuals, and then also privately and on the executive level, and also in private groups and corporate workshops, which she also draws on her experience that she's gained working in the corporate world. And her focus is on helping people to take their power back, to get to know their true selves, align with their heart's desires, and create harmony and balance in their lives. I don't know if this is appealing to you, everybody, but it's really appealing to me. And the objective is to catalyze a shift for individuals and positively contribute to the dynamics within organizations. Also, as an aside, Tracy is very passionate about animals, and she has a precious brood of gorgeous cats and dogs. And I've met some of them, they are gorgeous. So Tracy, so lovely to have you with us again. Can I ask you to start off by sharing a bit about your journey and what has led you to do all these wonderful things that you do today?
Naomi, it's been a bit of a long road. Right after school, I wanted to study something that I'm passionate about. So I went into psychology, and I did that for 4 years. Now I studied something called a B-Psych, which is a practical counseling degree, and that involves an internship. So I did an internship, as you mentioned, at various places. Sometimes you're dealing with people who, you're just giving life skills to because they're sort of coming up for parole very soon and they need a bit of guidance. Sometimes you're dealing with a person who's, unfortunately going to pass away soon, and you're looking after them and their family and you're just offering support. Sometimes it involved things like trauma counseling. And then I worked in corporates for a number of years, doing things like retention and policy administration. So I know all about meeting those targets. And then I also am studying another degree at the moment, like sort of a refresher practical counseling degree. And in 2016 and again in 2018, I did 2 full years of NLP. So I did 2 full years of practicals and passing exams and that type of thing. And yeah, it's like I've survived cancer twice. I don't know if you know that about me.
No, I didn't.
So yeah, it's been a long road. It's been quite a journey, and I'm proud of who I am today. And it's taken a lot of work to get me to where I am and to who I am, essentially.
Wow, Tracy, thank you for sharing that. Gosh, and yes, that is new to me. So you've really been in some challenging situations yourself and helped other people through some really challenging life experiences. So I've always known that you have a lot to share, but you're giving me even more reason to really be to really respect where you're coming from. So thank you for that. And yes, I'd love to chat a bit more about each of those things. And I can imagine then your own experiences, especially surviving cancer twice. Is that something that coaching helped you through? And for the viewers, I'm just wondering who may not have experienced coaching and mindset coaching particularly, which is so important for all of these challenges that we face. Could you explain a little bit about how it works and what the benefits are, and perhaps linked into what the benefits have been for you in that case?
Okay, well, NLP stands for Neurolinguistic Programming. And if we were to unpack that a little bit, it's basically saying what we do is we model individuals who are excellent, who achieve a lot, who go above and beyond, and then we model their behavior and we narrow it down and we teach it to other people. So if I can put it to you this way, it's a recipe for success. And what a state is let's say happy or stressed or calm or joyful, and a state only actually lasts for 2 minutes. So at any time, if your state lasts longer than 2 minutes, it's because you're in a bit of a loop, and it means you have to remind yourself to be stressed or to be anxious or to be happy. So essentially, NLP is I am who I choose to be in the moment. And I was diagnosed with cancer when I was 27 and then again when I was 30. And I did NLP years later. So I would say the psychology part got me through. What I'm very, very passionate about, though, is life coaching and mindset, because that is what guides every single day. And there's something called the RAS. It's the reticular activating system. And Naomi, if I said to you today, I'm going to buy a blue polo, or I've just test driven one, suddenly you'll be very aware of all the blue polos. Oh, I didn't know my neighbor had one. And then you see 2 or 3 at Spa. And that's because neurons that fire together, wire together, which means that we look for things to support what we believe. So in terms of helping someone change their mindset, it's about understanding what their positive intention is of that mindset. How did it serve you before today? How has it been serving you? And when you realize that it might be, and this is my experience I'm drawing from sessions with people, that it might be getting you attention, or it might be giving you an excuse to stay stuck because you're kind of scared to take the plunge, or leave that bad relationship, or let's say go and study something meaningful because you're afraid of the work or the consequences of not being accepted into the program, whatever the case might be. We need to understand where you're coming from, where do you want to be, and how do we get you there using your map of the world. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense, and Gillian says so inspiring, and I agree with Gillian. I'm completely drawn into this, Tracy, actually, because I don't know a lot about it, and it's fascinating to me the way that you're speaking about what one of the things that really I picked up on is that you said a state only lasts for 2 minutes. So I've never thought in context of that, and so I'm guessing. Am I interpreting this correctly? As what you're saying is we need to almost moment to moment be choosing our state and how we're thinking and feeling. And I mean, I love empowering sense of that. And I'm also very aware that it's challenging because, I mean, we do go through, as you say, like in any given day, there'll be times when we're not feeling all positive and amazing and courageous even necessarily. So yeah, so what you also said there about, I guess, fear of failure, what is holding us back from moving forward if we are afraid of putting ourselves out there in some way. So just going a little deeper into that, what do you see as typical blocks for people in terms of moving forward? And first of all, in fact, even working out what they really want, is that a bit of a challenge sometimes? And how do you go about working through that?
Very much so. I think, as one of my lecturers recently said to me, if you want to go to New York, what is the starting point? And often everyone will say, oh, how I'm going to get there. Actually, the starting point is, where are you now? So when you know where you are and where you want to go, only then can you decide, am I going to fly there? Am I going to get on a ship? What am I going to do? Because essentially there are many ways of achieving a goal. And I think from my experience, I have learned that a lot of people don't understand how to get what they term as unstuck. It's a very common thing that I hear people say is, I feel stuck. And what I can tell you is that we perceive ourselves to be stuck. We are never stuck. And we've gotten ourselves unstuck many, many times from different scenarios. So there's always a way to be unstuck. So I'll give you a little story. My dad was a paratrooper in the army, and he did 100 jumps, and they did day jumps and night jumps. And, my dad was Irish, so he was always, getting himself into predicaments that the average person maybe wouldn't get themselves into. And he did a night jump and he landed in a hole, but this hole was about 4 meters deep and 4 meters wide. And he had been given provisions that would last him maybe 3 days at a stretch. And I think it was on day 3 or 4, he had tried to get out of this hole and tried to get out of this hole, and he just wasn't coming right. And he said to me, he ran out of water. And the moment he drank his last sip, within 2 hours, he was out of there, because he realized it's now do or die kind of thing. And what is very sad is that most of us, and we're all very guilty of this, will stay in the hole until we take our last sip of water. And often people don't feel the energy or the inspiration to get out of there, because they've been there for so long and they've waited for help to come. And I'm sorry to say that oftentimes you've got to be your own hero, because other people don't perceive how difficult you may be experiencing day-to-day life, because we need to speak up and tell people what we need and put our hands up and say we need help. And the reality is that a lot of people will stay in that hole till that last second, and then it will be that adrenaline that gets them out of it. Whereas actually, if you could get yourself out that hole on day 3 or 4, chances are you would have gotten yourself out on day 1 or 2 had you calmed down, looked around you, and thought about what your options are. And when people say to me that they're stuck, which is a very common concern that people come to me with, I say, you're not stuck. You think you're stuck. That is how you perceive yourself to be, or where you perceive yourself to be. Let's talk about times when you got unstuck and what qualities you possess, what characteristics you possess that can help you now, just like they've helped you in the past, to become unstuck. So in my opinion, it's a matter of perception. If there are people that can learn to walk again, like Sharon Stone after she had that massive, massive stroke, she had to learn to talk, walk, eat again, then most definitely, if you look at the bigger picture, hearing all of the information. If a person's unhappy at work, if a person's in an unhappy relationship, if a person's got a problem of some kind, if there are people that can learn to walk again, surely we can, for ourselves, learn how to get ourselves unstuck. But it does mean having somebody sometimes shine a light in that hole for us in order to illuminate ways for us to get out.
Sure, Tracy, this is so powerful. Wow, thank you.
It's a bit intense.
But it's so important for us to hear. And I love that analogy that you give with your dad. I mean, amazing. And I bet your dad was an amazing man also. Wow. And what's crossing my mind as you're speaking, and again, I mean, it's so much respect and honor to you for pulling yourself through cancer twice, because so often I think what happens, as you're saying, we get to that point where something drastic happens in our life before we actually have the impetus to do something. So I'd love to ask you, do you think, is there some advice that you can give to everybody watching, and me included, to identify trigger points when you might be reaching a place where you actually need coaching? And it, you know, because one of the big stumbling blocks, I think, is that we feel, as you say, and especially as women, we don't often reach out for help easily. In fact, as men as well, thinking about it, and thinking about suicide rates and things also, and for teens and things. And we don't identify that in each other necessarily. Do you see, can you give us a few tips on what to see in yourself and other people that might be a guide to say, you know what, you could actually use a little help here, and maybe see somebody who can give you that perspective and help you get out of that hole before you've been in there for a little bit too long and you hit that place of last sip of water. Love that analogy.
And Naomi, there's a lot of different little things. You know, Oprah, and I would suggest to anybody to subscribe to her Super Soul Sundays podcasts. And what she calls it is that little whisper. And she says there's that gut feeling, like you get a little pebble against the head. You don't change behavior. You don't listen to your gut. And then it's like a little bit of a rock, and then a bigger rock, then a really big rock, and then it's a brick, and then it's the brick wall. So we all essentially have a decision to make. Am I changing my behavior because I left it when it was a pebble and it's now turned into a rock? And before the brick comes, or the brick wall, do I decide that I'm going to change something for myself, or do I decide to keep going on the same road, which is not serving me anymore? Because we need to create some clarity here. The road that you've been on up until this point is not necessarily a bad road. It may no longer be helpful to you, because in NLP we believe there's no right or wrong info. There's only helpful information. So when it is helpful, it means it's getting you to your goals, you're living your best life, you're feeling good about yourself, you're setting boundaries, you're sticking to them, you're expressing your boundaries to people, and you are giving consequences as such for when people don't honor those boundaries, whether it be, okay, we talk for 10 minutes. Let's say you have a tough relationship with your mom. From about 12 or 13 minutes, you guys start getting, irritated with each other, or you get annoyed with her, or vice versa. So now you set a rule. Now we speak for 9 minutes, because that's when, we play nicely with each other, so to speak. So there's a lot of little signals. And the biggest ones is when you feel as if you're betraying yourself. So I'm going to give you a practical example from a friend who went on to Tinder. And she said she'll say yes, 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 even though she gets a feeling that this person may be a poor match, or she doesn't get a good vibe from the person's picture, because she really wants to meet someone. Now, you need to know what you do want and what you don't want. And if you don't know what you don't want, you won't be avoiding it, if that makes sense. So now when she feels as if she's betraying herself, that is when she says yes, even though it says, for example, in the profile, let's say, recently divorced, or I have 2 children, and she knows in her heart, let's say, she only wants to be with someone who's been divorced at least a few years. So there's clarity, with issues there. So it's all about going, does this sit right with me? Do I feel as if I'm betraying myself? Am I being kind to myself? And is this necessary? So little things like saying yes too much means that you're kind of too dependent on other people's opinions of you, which is codependency, which means my happiness is based on your opinion of me. So if you find you're saying yes, 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 and you're thinking, gosh, I'm so tired, I don't have the energy for this, whether you're saying yes to your boss or yes to your brother, let's say, who wants to go out this evening, if you are feeling as if this behavior may not be in your best interests, whether it be a conversation, whether it be a job interview, whether it be staying at a particular job, whether it be feeling as if you're kind of in Groundhog Day. Naomi, do you remember that movie with Bill Murray? He lived the same day over and over again.
Yes.
So sometimes people get that Groundhog Day feeling. They feel like my life is okay. It's not terrible, but they get that Groundhog Day feeling. So nothing's changing. Nothing's changed for a while. That can also be translated as the stuck feeling. And also just feeling as if I've had the same conversation with my partner, with my child, so many times, and yet nothing has changed. So it can be that feeling of exhaustion and frustration.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. And Julian says, I'm loving these examples and guide on boundaries. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Don't we all need a little
Boundaries
bit of...
are a big one. And I do honestly feel, and this is one quick thing I have to share, go onto YouTube, everyone, and watch Tyler Perry's Medea, Let Them Go. And as Medea says, there are 2 places in your life where you will have peace, in the grave and in your house. Now, you owe it to yourself to have peace everywhere if you can. Some things are in your control and some things are not. What you allow in your circle, remember dirty dancing, this is my dance space, this is your dance space. What you allow in your dance space, that is what you choose because you've allowed it. And what you continue to invite in, you continue to choose. And it is okay to say no, and it is okay to say no for now, and it is okay to say no this time.
Brilliant. I love it. Just give me that again. Tyler Perry's, you said Medea.
Medea, M-A-D-E-A. So that's his, well, I don't think he does it anymore. That was his alter ego. Medea, Let Them Go.
Let them go.
That's correct. It's about 5 minutes now.
Okay, I'm going to go and watch that. Awesome. And I mean, this also extends to all areas of life, doesn't it? And I'm so appreciating everything that you're offering here, Tracy. Thank you. And I'm thinking now about all of our viewers, who many of whom are entrepreneurs, but all otherwise professionals. And there's so much precariousness in the world at the moment with regard to finances and just generally money in general, but also sort of general wealth. I know I love on your website. I love your website, by the way. It's very gorgeous.
Thank you.
And on your website, you also talk about really developing a wealth mindset and success orientation. So I'd love to ask you if you have any tips for our viewers in relation to that, also from a mindset perspective, in terms of bringing the wealth aspect and looking after our finance aspect in our businesses, as well as then obviously the personal side.
Well, I think wealth, money, currency are very sensitive subjects at the moment. Everyone is feeling as if they want to hold on to everything that they have, and they're scared to spend for obvious reasons, because we don't know what next week or tomorrow brings. And COVID has highlighted some of the more difficult aspects of our society. No work, no pay. No, I can't count on my boss to look after me. So people are feeling more alone than ever in a way, because they've realized they're just an employee. And I think that brings in an aspect of sadness, because a lot of people have worked at companies for 25 years or 20 years or 18 years or 12 years, and they've genuinely given their sweat, their blood, and their tears. And a lot of people are coming to realize, okay, well, technically this is an exchange. And I read something once that said, remember that if you do pass away, your company will have to replace you. It's not about them being petty, it's about them needing your role to be fulfilled. And I think when COVID happened, that kind of mindset that no one's indispensable, everyone really needs to pull their weight right now, there's no more slacking, and you need to plan ahead. So that's put a lot of pressure on people who may already feel very thinly spread. And Naomi, I'm not just saying in terms of money. A lot of people out there are single parents. A lot of people out there have only one income in their house. A lot of people are supporting parents or grandparents. And a lot of people have got one salary amongst 5 or 6 people. So the pressure is on in a lot of ways. And what we learn in NLP is that I'm at cause, I'm not at effect, which essentially means if I'm just giving you an idea, at a certain age and I'm still in a job which is a junior position that I started in 5 years ago, and I'm unhappy about that, I need to look at the reasons why I stayed. Have I applied for promotions? Have I applied again? Have I prepared? Have I done everything that I can do to get what I need and what I want? Whereas I feel, and this is just my opinion, that society, and everyone to an extent is guilty of this, feels that they are at effect, that their boss is a bad person, that they get overlooked, that the rules of the company are too strict, as opposed to going, look, I've been working here for 5 years in a position that I was promised a promotion in after 2. I didn't do a single course, and I didn't keep my end of the deal. And also, after being turned down for a promotion once, I kind of left it because people fear rejection. So we need to remember something, that people who have a poverty mindset, which means a poor mindset, which means a mindset that tells them that they will only have as much money as their parents had. They'll only have as much money as society tells them that they will have, are oftentimes those people that find themselves in between a rock and a hard place financially. And it does not mean that genuinely terrible and difficult things happen. People get sick, and now there's only their partner working, right? Because maybe they had a small policy or they had no policy, and that ran out, and now you're 3 years in and you're the only breadwinner, or somebody got retrenched, or you both got retrenched. It does happen. That's the reality we face. But sometimes, instead of looking at it and saying, right, I'm in this awful position and I'm the victim because this horrible thing has happened to me, how about deciding that I choose to be who I am in the moment, and I'm going to go on whatever job finding website, and I'm going to send my CV out a minimum of 10 times every single day. And I will still get my tush out of bed at 6 o'clock in the morning. And I will still go, and I will go and sit on that, I don't know what you call it, PNet or Job Finder or whatever the case might be. And I will take responsibility for what happens from here on out. So I feel as if having a healthy and a wealthy mindset is taking responsibility for being at cause, not being the victim, and not living a life of codependency. And that goes with you and your partner, with you and your boss, with you and your sister, with you and your friend. When people tell us things that we don't like to hear, we often shut down, we shut them down, and we get angry. And one of the most important things I feel about progressing in life is accepting feedback. So if you're in a position where, let's just say, you haven't received a promotion, a mature conversation with your boss, asking them why you were turned down and how you could improve yourself to be sure that you are seriously considered for the next promotion. How about something like that instead of gossiping in the kitchen about the fact that there's favoritism at work? Because I think we often, with the reticular activating system, we see things the way we want to. We hear things that we need to hear to support our mindset and to negate what could actually be happening. And if there are people that can literally build themselves up from nothing, they grow up in a township and their parents do janitorial work or whatever the case might be, and they get a university education and they become a medical doctor. That is the 1% of people who have a wealthy and healthy mindset, because they are choosing to be who they are in the moment, and that is successful regardless of their external circumstances, which may not be making all your targets at work today, and it may not be having a happy relationship right at this moment, but it means being happy in here and successful in here and determined in here to do what you need to do in order that tomorrow is better. And that means right now, I'm stopping, I'm going to go to the daily Goalcast on Facebook, I'm going to watch a motivational video, I'm going to register for a course. It's all about taking responsibility. I'm at cause, and what I do today will affect my tomorrow. And by my tomorrow, I mean a week and a month and a year and a decade from now.
Yeah, also very powerful. Thank you, Tracy. And what I keep hearing you talking about is actually taking action also. And as you say, I mean, you very eloquently explain how much challenge and trauma even is going on out there. I actually watched a movie which was recommended to me on LinkedIn by another doctor of psychology, actually from Australia, and it's called The Wisdom of Trauma. And it was so powerful. It was actually on at the moment. I'm not sure if it's still free. There was a free version online, was thewisdomoftrauma.com/movie. And what was so amazing about it to me was it really brought home that every single one of us have experienced trauma in some way in our lives. And you know, we often think of the classic radical traumas, you know, abuse or that sort of thing, but there's so many others. And so I just wanted to ask you also, you know, from a personal perspective, again, that you have overcome cancer twice like that. I would imagine that it can be quite easy to fall into a victim mindset, as you've mentioned, like if you lose your job or if you become ill, and to feel like, why has this happened to me, and feel quite victimized. And I imagine it would be a bit difficult to really get through that from a mindset perspective, and then also to you know, move into taking action and maintaining it. So I wanted to ask you if you could share a little about just your experience of getting through it, and you know, to give people some advice, whether it's illness or whether it's a retrenchment or something like that. And also what you mentioned earlier was, you said that the psychology really helped you. So I'm just interested to know the combination of the psychology and the coaching, how that kind of works together in that sense.
Okay, well, the psychology is more about understanding how we are shaped by our parents' parenting styles and, you know, our childhood experiences, and the way that we choose to see things and how it affects and influences our actions. So I think psychology in a big way, in my opinion, is gaining an understanding of things. And NLP is more about, where are you now? How do we want, or where do you want to go? And what is your timeline on that? And how do we get you there? So it can be something very simple, like you hate smoking and you do it because it's in habit, and maybe it's a crutch or whatever the case might be. It might be, you know, the fact that you say yes too often to things and it's now having an effect on your life. And it can be something like your employees at work are underperforming dismally and you've tried every incentive in the books, and it's not as if they don't have what they need at their disposal. it's a lack of motivation. So it can simply be a very straightforward thing, or it can be something that you need to delve more deeply into. And I think having the balance of the NLP and psychology helped me a lot. And my mom, who passed in 2015, she helped me a lot to get through the cancer. And so did my dad. And you know how they did it? Polar, complete opposites. My mom was like, you're either going to lie down in the dust and die and people are going to walk over you, or you're going to get up and you're going to carry on. It's your choice, A or B. And then my dad was the one that was nurturing me. Oh, how are you feeling today? And is there anything we can get you? So I think inside all of us, there's a masculine and there's a feminine. And there are times when we need to say to ourselves, okay, Shane, you know, you're not feeling great today. You've got a headache, or I don't know, you've got, you know, stomach ache, or you've got a bit of low energy. Make sure you take your vitamins and eat right and take regular breaks today. Then there's that masculine side of yourself. It's like, come on. There's a deadline. You do need your job. Jobs are scarce. Work a bit harder. Do your best. So as one of my mentors says, Naomi, it's not about getting out on the right side of the bed. It's about getting out on the right side of your head. And so it's really about saying, I want to live. So in 2012, there was an oncologist who told me I had a 40% chance of living, and if I was alive in 2 years, he'd be surprised. I specifically remember being my mother's child that day and saying to him, oh, okay, cool. You're delusional. I'm going to take my bag and leave, because I don't warrant what you say and I do not accept what you say. I'm cancelling that out. I'm done. And that very, very same day, a friend of mine at the time, her husband was a medical rep for oncology, and he was at a conference, and I had a very rare cancer. Only 2% of the population gets it. And he stood up at tea time. She had just spoken to him, and he read the text and he said, everyone, hold on. This is my wife's friend. Where should she go? And he referred a doctor 8 kilometers. A whole bunch of people said, this is the one. 8 kilometers from my house. And he was at the time, I'm not sure if he is anymore, the head of oncology at Joburg Gen and Wits. So he knew what he was talking about. I decided to live. I could have gone and crawled into my bed and decided, now, this is it, I'm done. And you know what I said to myself? I was like, oh, heck no. You're just a person. You're not God. You don't know everything. And you don't get to speak over my life. And Jill is a huge mentor to me. And I do honestly feel that Jill often helps me keep my horse on the road. So my NLP mentor, Cedric, always says your job is to help the client keep their horse on the road, because the horse is going to want to go eat something here and eat something there and sniff other horses. You know what? You've got a goal, and it's not going to be 24/7. And even on Sunday afternoon, you're not relaxing and you're like, but it's a lot of the time, because time is precious and it passes very quickly. And what you're doing today will affect your tomorrows, and you've got to keep your horse on the road. And Jill helps me a lot with that. And one thing I can tell you that I've always gotten from her is you've got to know what you want, and you've got to work towards it, and things happen for us, not to us. So if you've lost that job, I bet you at the back of your mind or your heart, even if it's in the deepest part of your soul, there was a part of you that was sick of that job, or sick of that manager, or sick of the pay, or whatever the case might be. And sometimes we don't exit gracefully, Naomi, a job or a relationship, and all the stars are aligned and they're showing you a big sign, and you're just like, oh, look over there. You know, we don't want to accept the truth. So what I can say to people is accept your truth, own your truth, and work towards something better for yourself. Even if you just go on UNISA and you look at what courses they offer, or you do a Udemy course, or you just say, I'm going to read a book. If you go to certain websites, you can download books for free. Read a book.
Oh, that's
Do
beautiful.
anything.
Yes.
Love
Yeah.
yourself enough to know that when you're going through a tough time, it's a cry for help.
Yeah.
And when you are not experiencing love, when your life is not balanced and you're not in a good space, that is trauma. That's the bottom line. So if you want to get away from that, you've got to get away from what is causing that. And it may be a person, it may be the way you allow that person to treat you. It may be a whole lot of things. It may be a combination. But if you sit and you have an honest conversation with yourself or with a mental health worker, because I promise you that happened to me very recently. I was having a conversation with someone I know because I've been feeling stuck on one particular issue recently. And I said something and I was like, and I had an epiphany that had taken me 3 months to arrive at that.
Yes.
Well, if you're still there, I'll tell you about that later. So the point of the matter is you just sometimes need to hear yourself say it because it's there.
Yes.
You're just not always ready to face it. You're not always ready to admit it yourself. And why, Naomi? Because then I have to change something and it's going to be hard and I don't feel like it and I'm going to upset people and it's difficult conversations. Just be brave.
In a nutshell, just be brave. I love all of this is amazing. And Lavintra says, bless you, Tracy. You are so inspiring. And she says this is so profound. Yeah, thank you, Lavintra. I'm so glad you're with us. Thank you. Tracy, it is. It's deeply inspiring. Thank you. And so real.
It goes on my head a lot. It's a very busy place to be.
I think all our heads are very busy, and I think that's part of our problem some of the time.
Clear the fog.
Clear the fog, yes. And I love what you're saying. I mean, it's so true that just even doesn't even have to be a third-party perspective. It needs to be a third-party presence, even for you just to be able to say something aloud that can give you that epiphany is amazing. So I just want to ask you, with regard to that, what do you find for yourself and for your clients? Bronwyn says, such a fabulous segment. Absolutely. Thank you, Bronwyn, and thanks for being with us. So Tracy, what do you find is, I mean, I don't know if this changes from person to person, but like an optimal scenario of how often you might see your coach and for how long and how that works. What do you recommend there?
I think it works differently for everyone. Personally, some people would like to come every week or see me and speak every week. Some people feel comfortable with every 2 weeks, and some people feel comfortable with it every single month. I personally have an ongoing relationship with my life coach because I feel as if it's incredibly important for me to say, right, let's call my mental health a flower. The flower needs certain amounts of sun and certain amounts of shade and certain amounts of watering and compost and all of that type of thing. It's not that I just plant it and I leave it there and I expect it to be okay. So I feel that there has to be maintenance. So some people will say, look, I'm going to purchase a package from you, like let's say 4 sessions, and then I'd like to come every week for the first 2 weeks, and then let's do every second week. And then after that, you'll find that they'll purchase, let's say, another package, because the packages are designed in such a way that if you purchase more than one, you pay less per session. And then you might get someone who wants to do 1 session out of, randomly out the blue. And then you hear from them a month later, they want another one. And then you hear from them 3 months later and they want another one. I always say it depends on the concern that you're coming to coaching for. It might be that I specifically want to work on boundaries, or I specifically want to work on me in the relationship. Because remember, Naomi, when you are part of a system and you change, the system has to accommodate that change and there will be a shift. So if you are evolved and open-minded, you don't necessarily always have to go to your partner and say, for our relationship to improve, we must both go. So you might decide you're going on a relationship issue, you might work on that for 3 months, then you decide, oh, okay, great. Let me just go once a month now or twice a month for maintenance. I just believe you owe it to yourself that if it is something, as a friend of mine recently mentioned, her cousin is going through a little bit of burnout, that would be more sort of at the moment, let's see you every week for 2 or 3 weeks, and then you start. I think sometimes people are hesitant to sign on because they think it's like a psychologist and I'm going to have to be there every week and I'm going to lie down on their couch and, I'm going to tell them my deepest, darkest secrets. And life coaching is more about, like I'm saying, where you are now and where you want to go. So it's more about what goals do you actively want to work on, what's the most important thing. And remember, sometimes you'll do 5 steps forward and 1 or 2 back, and 10 steps forward and 2 back. And you just need someone to help you keep your horse on the road. And that just means, like you condition your hair, right? Everything requires a certain amount of maintenance, but it does depend on the person. I don't personally tell people that they have to come every week. If you want to buy 4 sessions and come every month, that to me is a privilege to work with someone who values their mental health. And now they've made a plan that they can afford to stick to, money and time-wise, in terms of mental health upkeep.
Yeah, that's great. And I love how you liken it to a plant. I've never thought of that. It's actually similar to the session that I had last week with Jan Tucker, who does Qigong healing. And she was also talking about the body. So you're talking about the mental health and she was talking about the physical health being like a plant. And it's such a great analogy. Thank you. And so just to touch on something, I'm very passionate about helping women really shine their light and share their brilliance in the world. And for that, I know one of the things that you mentioned quite a bit on your website as well is to do with helping people align with their true desires and really to create harmony and balance. So would you like to touch on that, Tracy, how you go about that, and just give a couple of ideas for our viewers on doing that?
Well, I think that there's no life that's ideal or perfect. If you think about it, celebrities go through divorces. Celebrities get cancer, celebrities go bankrupt. There's no life that's perfect, but you've got to decide where you are in your life and where your values are, and are they aligned with where you are? In other words, you go through times like when you're in your 20s, where all you really care about is money, 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 because maybe you were a broke student and you want to keep up with your friends and you want to have experiences. And then people tend to get to their 30s and their 40s and their values change. So you need to know who you are, not who you were 5 years or 2 years or 6 months ago. So living in harmony means having difficult conversations with yourself. And that means checking in with yourself very, very regularly. And one exercise that I can suggest, if anyone, is interested in self-development, maybe just write this down. I'm borrowing this from Lisa Nichols in part, and she's an entrepreneur based in America. And she says to keep a diary. And every evening, you just take 3, 4, 5 minutes. You owe it to yourself. You owe it to the people around you who you say that you love and who are depending on you to keep your cup full. And just writing down 4 subheadings, and under each one, 3 little points. So number 1 would be, what am I grateful for? And then A, B, C under that. It can be something so small, like I've got the cutest little nephew in the world, for example, or my friend sent me this picture of their most adorable baby, that type of thing. Or the fact that I have a home. It can be small things, it can be big things. So what am I grateful for? And then something I promise myself. So in other words, I promise myself that I will set boundaries in terms of how I allow people to speak to me. I promise myself I'll eat more fruit and veg. I promise myself I'll drink water. So it's grateful for, what do you promise yourself? What do you thank yourself for? So I thank myself for, let's say, meditating once today, whatever the case might be. I thank myself for getting up and dressing up and showing up and going to work every day and doing my best, even though things might be difficult. You might, let's just say, be working in an environment where, I don't know, you feel as if you don't fit in or whatever the case might be, but you're still trying. And then lastly, what do you forgive yourself for? And that's a big one. And for me, I'll share something. When my mom passed, she died very suddenly, and I didn't have that time to make, things right or perfect in terms of those final conversations we have. Like, you would ideally love to say, oh, I love you and I wish I had more time, whatever. I can forgive myself for not having gotten there on time. That's okay. Because living with anxiety or depression means that I'm living in the past or I'm living in the future. As Deepak Chopra said, I am here now, and what can I do with this? So living in harmony means accepting your reality, not necessarily saying that it's going to be like this forever, but promising yourself and taking action towards improving that. Because there's one of you, and your life is so, so short. And if you want to take second best and, fill yourself up on starters for the rest of your life, then that's your decision. But if you want more for yourself, that does mean putting in the work. And I think that's where a lot of us hesitate and we dig in our heels because we're scared of when we peel that onion, what are we going to see? And I am 100% confident with the experience that I have and having faced a couple of my own demons. It's not as bad as you think. It's actually far less stressful than you think. And when you start on that road to self-development, it becomes addictive. You just want to do more and more and become more and more enlightened and talk about it and tell people to do it. So it can sometimes be annoying, but it means surrounding yourself with people who believe in you. And that means that you need to know who you are, so you know who to surround yourself with. And it may not be the people that you've been surrounding yourself with for the last 5 years. So that's another thing where people struggle is letting go of what's no longer meant to be.
Wow, this is amazing, Tracy. I love it. The gratitude journal I'm very familiar with, so that I've done a lot, but I haven't done these extra steps of what do I promise myself, what do I thank myself for, and what do I forgive myself for? Wow.
Yeah.
And that can really be a daily thing, as you say, because so often we'll think of the one little thing in the day that didn't go perfectly rather than all the other things that did. So it's quite easy to find the gratitude things, but then also to actually say, okay, I forgive myself for that. I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, it's the wolf we feed, Naomi. As the native, I don't know if you've ever heard that Native American proverb, the two wolves inside of us. And by feeding our ego and allowing ourselves to be constantly beat up by what we didn't do or didn't do sufficiently, that does not inspire and motivate us. The way that your brain works is wiring it in a way that I'm going to do better next time.
Yes.
I'm going to let this go. Just stop carrying around this bag of rocks. There's nothing in that bag for you. Set it down and keep walking.
Yes, and Lavindra says, thank you, Tracy, for the tips. I will value that. Thank you, Lavindra. That's amazing. I'm loving this, Tracy. I feel like we could chat for another whole hour. But I would also like to ask you, just to give everybody watching also a little bit of insight into the different types of things that, you help people with. Do you have any breakthrough stories to share of clients who've had breakthroughs in, personal or professional scenarios?
Yeah. I have had one or two that I wouldn't be comfortable mentioning because
from a confidentiality.
Truly freak one or two people out because the things that we sometimes hear, it's somebody's reality and it's very raw and it's very real for them.
Yeah.
And it can be quite something. One thing I'll share is I had a person who I do believe they've got a more serious mental health issue, which I won't get into. But I recognized that very quickly, and I said to them, you know, what is the big thing you're coming here for today? And they want to get out of this depression, this cloud that seems to have followed them from childhood throughout their life. And they'd had some negative experiences as a child, and a number of culminating factors that led them here. And then I said to them, how do you do depression? And they said to me, what do you mean, do depression? Well, let's think about it. How do you do depression? Okay, no, I don't get out of bed every day. Someone else has to get the children to school. They can't hold down a job. People avoid them actively because they're very clingy. And I said to them, what is your positive intention of the depression? Now, positive intention, to give you just a quick idea, if there's a person that steals a loaf of bread from the shop, it's pretty obvious that they're not going to be a millionaire from that 15 Rand loaf of bread, but rather that they have a child to feed. So the bottom line is that is the intention. And this person's positive intention was to gain attention from people.
Sure.
And I said to them, are there healthier ways for you to put your hand up instead of, as they eloquently put it, I've been playing the victim? And they said, yeah, I can tell my dad, Dad, let's do some gardening together. I can tell, my sister, come over, let's have a breakfast. It doesn't have to be things that cost money. It's about surrounding yourself with people who are willing to take 5 or 10 minutes and have a conversation with you. And you also need to remember to take the responsibility of how I'm feeling and what I'm saying and what I'm doing is impacting other people. And how do I want to leave them? So it's all about having that honest conversation. And Naomi, when you're speaking to a complete stranger, it's often so liberating. I mean, some of the things that people have told me that I know in my heart and my gut, they probably wouldn't tell their own pastor, something like this. It is healthy, it is necessary, and everyone has, skeletons in the closet. So it is completely important for us to have a natural, healthy outlet with someone who's trained, who can say, that happens, I get you, I hear you, just to feel that validated feeling like, no, you're not the only person telling me this.
So valuable. Thank you, Tracy. And I'm grateful that you touched on depression, because I think so many people, it's such a worldwide epidemic. I think so many people experience it to some degree or another. And that's so valuable what you mentioned there about what is the upside, and how can you, and I think that might often be a way that many of us do things without realizing, for attention or in habits that we may have within certain
relationships. It's what people know. And it's not always that they're seeking attention at all. That was just that particular person's epiphany. I mean, sometimes people are depressed because in a way they're burnt out, and it's their body's way of forcing them to slow down, because the pebble came and the rock came and eventually the whole wall came. It's just when you can have that epiphany moment, and I'm sure all of us have had one, it literally feels like someone put on a light in a dark room. Thank God, because when I know what demon I need to battle, I know what weapon I need to take out to fight that thing, then I stand a chance.
Brilliant, Tracy. I love it. And also in such a non-judgmental scenario, because I think often we fear judgment. And now we're coming up to the hour, and honestly, I feel like there's so much more we could chat about. So what I'd love to do is just give you an opportunity, because whoever's watching, and thanks all of you ladies for being with us, really appreciate it. And any of you who are watching also the replay. So if anybody would like to find out more about you, Tracy, and your work, I just want to give you an opportunity to share how they can do that. And just to wrap up, so Lavintra says, love this. Thank you, Lavintra. Loved having you with us.
Thank you for your support, Lavintra.
Yes, Tracy. And then, so just how people can connect with you. And then also if you have any final wrap-up thought for us with all of the wisdom that you've been sharing. Thank you.
So you guys can find me on my website, Fenton, tracyfenton.com. You can email me at tracy@tracyfenton.com. My cell is on my website, and I've also got a professional Facebook page. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter. And I offer so many packages that you would be hard-pressed not to find one that will suit you. And I always try and offer that little bit of value. I'm not a clock watcher, and I don't go, okay, now it's 53 minutes and we just need to wrap this up and this needs to move on. My concern is where you are and how you are and what value and progress you have seen and felt in the session. And go on my website and you'll see that I work with people from all, shapes and sizes and ages, and every single person has a story. And every single person's story is very valuable. And I can tell you, part of my ethic, Naomi, is just always to remember that you might be giving this person 2 or 3 minutes of your time. You might be giving them a smile. You might be giving them an hour of your time. To them, it might be that conversation that saves their life. It might be that conversation that gives them hope. And it might be that conversation that creates a shift in them. The most important thing is that, as Dr. Maya Angelou said, people will remember how you made them feel.
Yeah.
And that's all I care about, is how I leave people feeling. And for us also to love ourselves enough and love the people around us enough, because we're part of a system, to decide now is the time to make a change and not wait until you've gotten to that point where you've run out of water.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you, Tracy. And I love what I've seen also expressed on your website, how you say that when we change ourselves, there's a positive impact on everybody around us, being part of that system, as you say. I love that. Thank you, Tracy. And just love the way you work and all of that. And so everybody, you can see Tracy's website is running along the bottom here. And we will also drop the link below this video after we wrap up now. So once again, thank you so much, Tracy, for being with us and for sharing all of this wisdom. And thanks all of you who've joined us. Really appreciate it. And please stay in touch. And love that you've all been with us. I so appreciate it. Thank you.